Assalamualaikum and a very good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daphne Iking and I'm a proud Thermomix user as well as an advisor. Now today we are going to be making, meaning me, and you guys are going to be watching it, beef ragu with ravioli, and you can make this very hearty dish effortlessly, well almost, with your Thermomix. Now this is my go-to recipe because my family loves this recipe, and prior to owning a Thermomix we would have to go to this particular restaurant. And it's quite pricey, I must say, each time we were craving for it. But now, with my Thermomix, my daughters and I can make it, and it's such a joy creating this from scratch. Now, before I continue, please, if you may, do like this video and do share it over your social media pages because we'd love to hear from you, to hear your comments, to get your feedback, and all this I'll be reading right after this live stream is done, all right? Cool? Awesome. All right, for this particular dish, there are many components to it, and you can create all the ingredients, in fact, well, most of it, from fresh produce as well as no processed instant premixes. So it's very good that you can also create some of the ingredients that you need from scratch with your Thermomix, all right? So what we will be doing first is we're going to be making the dough, and then we are going to slow cook the beef ragu, followed by wrapping as well as cooking the ravioli, all right? So that's going to be the order of our dish for today. All right, so we're going to start off with the dough. We're going to make the dough, and what's required is just flour, some eggs, and olive oil. And I am going to pour all these ingredients into the mixing bowl, just like that. Got 4 eggs here. For the flour, it's about 400 grams. And you're making quite a reasonable batch because the filling is quite banyak juga lah. That's quite a bit there. And I've already pre-weighed all the ingredients. And the next step is to close your mixing bowl with the measuring cup. I'm on the dough mode or kneading mode. We're gonna knead this for 2 minutes, just like that. So whilst this is kneading, I'm going to be prepping my workstation because right after that, I will need to take out the dough. It's going to look a little bit crumbly sometimes, depending on what flour you're using. I'm actually using plain flour for this. And then we're just going to wrap it with some cling wrap. And then we're just going to leave it to rest for about 15 minutes or so. And then we're going to be proceeding with the beef ragu, all right? So I'm just going to prep my station. I particularly love our Thermomix Thermomat. It's huge, so this also works fantastically as your working station, apart from the fact that you'll be using this to use it to roll out all your cookies, your bakes, what have you. You can use it to cover your dough. You can even put this and pop this into the oven because it can withstand high heat. So this is fantastic. Plus, it has all the measurements, because if you're someone like me, the family loves making pizza, it has all the measurements, and this is something fun that the children also like to do because they want to try and get the circles correct or perfect, and they have all the indentions of all the other measurements also, right? And what I'll also be having is, I actually have an old pasta maker that I'm also going to prop up here, but if you don't have a pasta maker, there is the option of using a rolling pin. Now this rolling pin was actually a tip that I received when I attended one of the baking classes that we have regularly here in our Thermomix studio. So if you have never come to any of our cooking or baking shows, please do so because you will get so many wonderful tips, all right? And this particular rolling pin is great because it comes with a little attachment where you can choose how thick you want your dough to be. So in this case, it would be about 2 millimeters to 1 mm. The thinner the ravioli dough is, it's much nicer because then it comes out when you boil it. It will really come out really macam Italiano. Okay, that was a really bad accent of it. Cakap, dah siap dah, okay? So, I am going to carefully remove the dough onto my workstation. In this case, it's the Thermomat, and this is how it looks like, all right? So it does look a little bit crumbly, but that's fine. I'm just gonna get the dough out. There is the option of just taking it out by hand, but this is one more option that I do, and you'll see that there is a nice clean-ish finish to it, so you don't have to worry about having to do too much cleaning later on, okay? So, because I will be using this bowl later on, I'm just going to quickly add in some water just to pre-clean it for a while. And I don't even put soap, to be quite honest, because later on I'll be using this to boil my ravioli much later. I am using 2 bowls, and that's why it's so good if you do have 2 bowls with your Thermomix. So if you're considering in getting an additional bowl, I would highly recommend it, okay? So, and the thing is, because this is obviously the studio's Thermomix, I'm so used to, you can actually edit your modes accordingly, so I know where my modes are. So that took me a little while to guess, oh, where's my pre-clean? Because I'm so used to the one that I have. Okay, so we've got the dough over here, and I'm just gonna put it all together to form a ball. And you wanna let it rest for about 15 minutes. Okay. And later on, I'll be using my pasta maker to really roll it out nice and thin. Okay. Okay, that looks all right. I've got my cling wrap here. I have like the industrial size cling wrap because I'm constantly cooking. Actually, if you're a Thermomix advisor, you would also have access to some of these silicone covers or lids that we have, and that's also very cost-saving and also much more healthier for the environment, okay? So I'm gonna let you rest for 15 minutes and thank God for this other additional feature that we have on your Thermomix TM6. We are gonna put the timer on 15 minutes because sometimes I boleh membebel panjang and then terlupa dekat dia punya timing. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside for about 15 minutes. And then, just put you here first. And I am going to switch bowls because later on I will be cooking my ragu at the back while I do the rest of the ingredients, all right? So we're just going to use the second bowl and we are going to now proceed with the beef ragu. Okay, so we're just going to let the timer continue timing me. Now, for the beef ragu, we've got some ingredients here, okay? So the first step that I'm going to be doing is I am going to pour in the oil, just like that. And then we're going to add in the onions as well as the garlic. The red onions that I have, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's the same for you guys, but I've noticed that the onions and garlics of late in the market, I don't know if it's just my area, are really, really tiny. So this is a slightly larger red onion, and what I've done is I just cut into quarters. Rule of thumb, especially to those new Thermomix users, is as long as your ingredients can go into the lid, the sizing, then it should be fine. So we've added in the garlic, the onions, the celery, as well as the carrots, okay? And we are just gonna chop this for 4 seconds at speed 5. And then I am going to quickly grab my spatula because we're gonna scrape down everything in. It looks like this, guys, very easy. It actually reminds me of, you know, coleslaw. All right. Okay, so we're going to be cooking this for about 3 minutes, 100 degrees Celsius at speed 1, okay? 3 minutes. Okay, 100 degrees Celsius. It's a little bit tricky when you're trying to navigate your Thermomix from the back. Normally we're in front. And we're going to go on speed 1. So we're just going to let this cook for a while, and I'm just going to make sure that I've got everything else ready. In the meantime, what's going to happen next is I'm going to be pouring in the thyme, the sage, the rosemary, basically all the herbs that comes with it, as well as some salt and pepper. We've got our vegetable seasoning, some chili flakes, tomato paste, as well as canned tomatoes. Now, there was once where I did try using tomato puree instead of paste, right? So it does get a little bit liquidy, and normally, because this is about 50 grams of tomato paste, then you would add an additional 50 grams if you are using puree. It just gets a little bit liquidy, but it still tastes good. And another tip is if you are, if you are making beef stock, that would be great, because I actually prefer using beef stocks or beef cubes or your own homemade beef stock, you know what I mean, right? Those cubes, to give it a little bit more extra oomph. And that's what I would do. Otherwise, then you can just settle for salt and pepper, and again, adjust it according to your taste. All right, because some people like it a little bit more saltier, some people like it a little bit milder. So for this, I'm just sticking to the recipe that I have, and then from there you can actually add on. If you even want to make it a little bit more spicier, then by all means go ahead and then tweak it along your way. All right, so this is this. You can actually make, so someone actually asked me prior to this when I was doing my recipe testing for this, right? Can you make your beef stock liquid by just using the beef stock cubes? You can do that. That is another option. Then you just have to tweak it along the way, okay? So let me just put this aside. And this is the one thing great about the Thermomix, right? While it's cooking, if I was not talking to all of you guys right now, I would just be cleaning, I'll be singing, I'll be helping out my kid with some other, God knows what other thing that mama needs to do. And it just gives you that little sense of peace, knowing that the Thermomix is cooking whatever you're cooking at the perfect temperature. It's there, it's doing all the stirring, the cooking for you, and you don't have to be there all the time. However, a reminder, because we showcase the kneading mode, that would probably be the only time that I would highly recommend you to just stick by your Thermomix, just in case the ada berjoget sikit, okay? All right? Okay, so we've got another 2 more seconds, and that's when I'm going to be popping in the aromatics, which is, of course, oh, it smells so good already, and this is just the garlic and the onions with the carrots and the celery. Right, so I'm going to add in the rosemary. Kadang-kadang susah. It's sometimes hard to find the fresh rosemary, fresh thyme, fresh sage. So there is the option of using dry herbs, okay? Yeah, this was hard for me to find, so I'm so glad that my team found it. This is sage. Wangi. And I'm using my tangan. So give a bit of love if you're going to be cooking this for the family. Boleh juga cakap Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I actually do have some thyme growing in my little balcony garden. So it's quite handy if you're cooking a lot with these herbs. It'll be really nice if you can actually have the essentials like your pandan, your lemongrass, and all that jazz, okay? So the bay leaves are in, flakes, all right? The vegetable seasoning with the salt and pepper, and we're also gonna add in 250 grams of the beef stock inside, and we're gonna cook this for 2 minutes. Instead of using the measuring cup, I'm gonna replace it with our simmering basket, all right? 2 minutes. 100 degrees Celsius. Don't you just love that it's so perfect? On speed 1. And we're going to place the simmering basket here. My ravioli should be rested in a few minutes from now. So what I'm going to do is, because the last step to this is just adding the ragu, and I'm going to be moving my ragu to the other Thermomix in the interest of time. Now I'm going to prepare my workstation. So how are we doing, friend? How are we doing? Oh, cantik dia, cantik. All right, let me see, where is my pasta maker? So this old thing has been around for years. There is an attachment that you can put so that it doesn't move so much. And I'm also gonna make sure that I have some extra flour for dusting, some water to seal the dough nicely so there won't be any air pockets. And wow, so chun-chun, habis dah, yay! Okay, so you are ready to be done. So let's see if I remember how to do this. Let me just make sure that I have everything ready first. And I need also my, this is the fun part. So fun. Okay, getting it right. So this is already well rested. I'm just going to take it out, and I'm also, because I'm going to be sharing this with all of you guys here in the studio who's been so fantastic, okay? You guys have been assisting me. This whole petang, lepas kerja, terus datang tolong I. So I'm going to feed all of you, okay? So because of that, I'm also going to be making sure that hygiene is in check. I'm going to wear my rubber gloves. All right. You don't have to do this if you're doing this from home. But as an advisor, I actually encourage all my Thermomix advisors to go through a food handling course. I think it's good for them to do so. Now, the last step before I focus on my dough and ravioli is that I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients, which is the canned tomatoes. Actually, the recipe requires you to add in the salt, the pepper, the seasoning at this step, but I like to do it beforehand. And again, depending on what you're comfortable with, when you're tweaking this recipe on your own, you can try it out, okay? But I like to do it beforehand just so that it has a bit of extra cooking done to really get out all the flavors. Okay. And then the last step is to add in the beef, which I'm also going to use the spoon since I've already got my gloves on. And we're going to pour everything inside. Now you will notice that this recipe memang, it will be filled up to the brim. Okay, so it looks like that. I'm not sure if Vincent can see it from where he is right now. Sorry that I'm naming names here, but yes, I do want to acknowledge Shafiqa and Vincent who are here with me in the studio. And what I'm going to do is, I am going to bring this to my second Thermomix over here. We're going to slow cook it for about an hour at 98 degrees Celsius, okay? So for this, I normally will add the, I will use the simmering basket for this. And then later on, depending on what meats you use, you may need to cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes, again, depending on what meat you use. All right, so I'm gonna go on slow cook for about an hour. Okay, just an hour will do. Up at 98 degrees, placing the simmering basket. And we're just going to let this slow cook. All right? So now, this is the part where Chef Daphne arrives, okay? And admittedly, this takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice. God knows how many videos I had to Google just to get all these tips correct. And I like to start in small batches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll out perhaps half of the dough and cover the rest, so that we can work in batches, okay? And we want to keep the dough nice and moist. I actually switched off the air condition in the studio just so that it won't be like too dry. And this looks great so far. We're gonna cut it again into half. Again, you can use the option of a roller, but you want to make sure that the dough comes out really, really, really thin, okay, and that can be quite troublesome. That's why I would highly recommend in investing a pasta maker. All right, so let me just get this correct, and I'm just gonna stand by a bit of flour because you wanna be, I've also cleaned this whole station that I have just in case. This is where the kids and I love doing this because, you know, we're all like in flour, covered in flour. And again, if you are using a pasta maker and you've not used it for a while, I would recommend cleaning it with a bit of dough first, which I've already done in advance. So I'm going to make the setting into the biggest one first. In this case, it would be setting 8. It is a bit tricky when you are. So the biggest setting so that you can roll it out thinly and then you can progress from there. Okay, because normally what I do is I would have an attachment to ensure that the pasta machine doesn't move around too much. Okay, so again, you can use your rolling pin, but I find that having a pasta machine like this, of course, there are more chunky ones out there, and you can just add on a bit of flour. I've read somewhere that you can use semolina flour, but just using plain flour is good enough. And I'm going to do this one more round. Okay, maybe I do need to put the attachment, because the attachment will stop your pasta machine from moving. It's just that this counter that we have right here doesn't allow for the attachment to be, you know, to be fixed. All right, so it's getting thinner and thinner, and you're going to work your way through, okay? You're going to work your way through, and now I'm going to go into maybe the midway, about 3. And we're going to do this again all the way till about setting dia 1 mm, about 1 millimeter. The recipe calls for about 2 millimeter, but I really like my ravioli dough or skin to be as thin as possible, and 1 mm is quite nice. When people ask me, you make your own pasta, it tastes so much better when you're doing it from scratch, because you know just how much work you put into it. And again, because you know exactly what ingredients you're using, right? So you're doing this, and this is about 3 mm, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to just double check. And always constantly add in a little bit of flour. So I'm going to do that one more time, but this time with the smallest setting, which is 1. All right. Look at this. Ta-da! Can you imagine? You can make your own pasta sheets, your pasta noodles, your fettuccine, your spaghetti, depending on how chunky your pasta machine is. Just make sure that you sprinkle in. This is what I mean by whether, you know, when you see all these Italian cooking shows, right, and you see the flour just moving about, what we can do is actually, let's cut into half. Let's not be too greedy, Daphne Iking. Let's do it step by step and not embarrass yourself live. All right, we're going to do this. We can do this. Again, this, I'm normally at home. My working station is able to attach the pasta machine so it doesn't move as much as this. But we're keeping it real here, guys. You know, we're keeping it real. I'm someone that loves authenticity, and ta-da. Okay, so I'm just going to showcase one, because earlier on I had my wonderful team, who I'm going to be feeding soon, who are looking at me like, I'm so hungry, have prepared a whole batch for me. But I just want to showcase how I personally create the filling. I'm going to let this rest for a while, because the next step is, earlier on, remember I had pre-cleaned my bowl. And very quickly, I'm just going to make the filling, all right? And this is so easy. You just need your ricotta cheese, salt and pepper, as well as some lemon juice and parmesan, okay? So let me just quickly put everything in. Ricotta cheese. Now, ricotta cheese admittedly can be a bit tricky to find, so there is a substitute you can use, which is cream cheese. But cream cheese can be a little bit on the saltier side, so I would recommend you just dissing out the, thank you so much, dissing out the salt and pepper, okay? And then we've got grated Parmesan cheese, which I'm also gonna add in. And because I'm using ricotta cheese, so I'm going to be adding the salt and pepper. But yes, again, if you can't find ricotta cheese,
it's okay. You can make it using your Thermomix, because ricotta is more authentic.
So salt and pepper, pop it all inside. All right. And then we're just going to blitz it for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. On speed 4. We're mixing it together. So while that's happening, I'm also going to clear out my station here, because I tak suka nampak macam banyak benda-benda atas counter ni. And I'm going to just go back into showcasing. I hope you guys can hear me, because I've got my, oh no, I'll just wait, because it's just 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, dah siap pun. All right, and we're just going to leave it open. And here's another tip that I want to share with you. What I would normally do is you can scoop out your filling using teaspoons, or if you have one of those little small cookie cutters that they have sold at baking shops, you can do that. But what I personally like doing is just using a piping bag. Okay, so I'm going to fill up all this into piping bag so it makes it a little bit more easier when I'm putting the filling onto my ravioli dough. All right, and yeah, guys, if you do have any tips that you would like to share for someone who loves, is totally obsessed with ravioli and anything Italian, please do share it over the comment box, and I would love to hear from you if there are any other easier ways to make your ravioli from scratch, okay? Actually, there's a bit more here, so what I'm gonna do is, I don't wanna waste it because these are really premium ingredients. I'm just quickly gonna blitz it over turbo for 2 seconds, just so that I can get all the other remaining filling for me to scrape out. And that's one thing great about the Thermomix, you know. You really are able to utilize the cookie dough meal plan, and then you will have access to your your shopping list, and then you are able to really plan your meals, and then nothing goes to waste, or at least there's minimum wastage because you know exactly how much ingredients is required. All right, so this looks good. Just nice, the amount of zest and tanginess to it. All right, and I'm also gonna pre-clean this because later on I'll be using this bowl for our cooking of the ravioli. So again, I'm just gonna add in water. All right, done. And then I'm going to pop you in and just give you a quick rinse for about 1-2 minutes. Sometimes I do it manually, but for the benefit of newbies out there, you have your pre-clean mode, and you can just do a quick one. Again, if you have any tips, please, please, please feel free to share it over. Would love to hear from you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's try this out. So you have your roll here, and I'm just gonna cut it into strips of like kind of standard. There are ravioli cutters that you can purchase. They have that little edge. But again, if you're starting this out for the first time, you can actually just use a cookie cutter or just cut it with a pizza cutter, just so that you have a very neat ravioli, okay? So this is how you do it, okay? You will take the piping bag and then you will put it in the center just like that, a little blob, and then make sure there's a little bit of space. Any Italians watching me? I hope I'm not offending anyone, okay? And then I'm gonna do it over here too, all right? And then what I'm gonna do next is take the water and just, just brush lightly some water along your exposed ravioli skin. This is just to help seal it. Then we're gonna fold it over just like that. And you are gonna be pressing around the cheese filling just to make sure that it will stick nicely. See, that will come out. And again, it's all about practice and, you know, really putting your love into it. And you have the option of using a cookie cutter like that. Of course, mine dah tak cantik sangat, but practice makes perfect. That's one option that you can do. And then you can like create little edges if you want, or you can just cut it into squares. That's another option that you can have. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you will see that that's one option that we have. You can just place a bit of flour on it. And then we have this other option, and you can continue to keep rolling the dough that we have. You can also use a little fork to make little edges here if you don't have a ravioli cutter, okay? So, thank God, Daphne Iking has wonderful assistants here. We have actually made the ravioli in advance. So I'm gonna bring it out. Give me a second. Ta-da! All right, so she can't be named because she's like, shh. She wants to remain anonymous, but thank you, Miss Z, for helping me out in creating these beautiful pre-made ravioli rolls because we have very, very little time. So now what we're going to do is I am going to, while rolling this all out, I'm just going to pour out the extent of the water from here, and we're going to start boiling it for about 8 minutes just to prep the cooking. Okay, so it doesn't have to be like completely clean. And what I have here, ladies and gentlemen, is the blade cover peeler. You would use the blade cover peeler when you're doing slow cook, sous vide, when you're peeling your root vegetables like potatoes and such. So we're going to pop this in. This is an additional accessory that you can purchase outside of your Thermomix. And we are going to add in about 1,500 grams of water. $1,500 over here, and then we are going to heat it up. Okay, 8 minutes. We're boiling this water. 8 minutes. 100 degrees Celsius. Speed 1. And while waiting for this to boil, I'm going to just continue playing around with my ravioli and creating more shapes, okay? So this is how you do it. Again, you would put some water inside on the top where it's with the filling, and you will press gently around the filling just to make sure there's no air pockets. And you can do this also. And if you want, you can actually lay out a longer sheet of dough. Make it as thin as you can. It doesn't have to be really perfect, but they do have those accessories that you can purchase where you can make much more prettier ravioli shapes. And ada macam-macam lah dekat sana. You can also shop for them online, so yes. And you can actually make this in advance. You can make a big batch, right, which I do, because actually the ricotta filling, dia banyak, it's quite a lot. So I actually, when I did this recipe, I said we can actually double the amount for the dough. Instead of the original recipe of 200, I doubled it to 400. And you can, you know, just lie it down on a parchment lined sheet, freeze it for a while, okay? So once it's frozen, then you can stack them up. Then it won't stick. And anytime you want to boil them or cook them, then you can also just have them on the go. I mean, like you have them already and you just have to add in whatever paste or cream or topping on top, okay? And even the beef ragu, it actually is quite a bit. So normally there'll always be a bit of leftover, and I just cook some spaghetti or make my own spaghetti pasta, and then we serve that for leftover Wednesdays. So how many of you, I actually learned this tip from another advisor friend where she meal plans her cooking or her recipes, and then in between there's always going to be leftover Wednesday, because there's bound to be some leftovers somewhere, and then that's the day that we cook or heat up our leftovers, and then we have that also ready. All right, so I'm just going to wait for this to cook. We're going to add in the salt also. So since it's heating up, I'm just going to add this, pop this in also, just so that it is ready. All right, so I'm just going to clean this up, and I will be completing the ravioli with my pasta machine. But because we have this already ready, I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to wrap it up. And you can always do this at the convenience of when you have an afternoon or a Sunday free, okay? And I'm also going to be cleaning up my station. Set this aside. So if you don't have a pasta machine, okay, what is your option? I will showcase it to you, and I will explain to you on the outcome. You will see that dia ada more work lah. to get it done, okay? So I'm gonna use this dough because the thing is, so this is about 2 mm, that's the smallest that I had. You're gonna roll it out as much as you can, which is still possible if you don't have the pasta machine. I was watching this documentary. I was going to say, like, I knew about this person who says that making ravioli from scratch is like a sunset business already. And now I can understand why. So you will see that it does require a little bit more strength and effort to make sure that the dough filling is really, really flat. Because otherwise, the dough will become a little bit too thick. And then, you know, for me, I prefer having the ravioli as if it's so light, it just like enters your mouth and it melts into your mouth. Ah, gitu, right? Okay, and 3 more seconds. And then later on, I can pop it all in. Okay, so di dah siap. All right, 8 minutes. And I am just going to place maybe half of this inside and to cook it for 4 minutes, 100 degrees on speed spoon. Okay? And because Miss Z has done this so beautifully with some dusting of flour in between, it doesn't get sticky, so it makes it a little bit easier. I would say you can pop about half of this inside nicely. This is about 400 grams of topping. Actually, no, it's actually half because we had like another half there. So we're going to have a lot of extra ravioli, which you can, again, freeze and keep in the fridge when you want to use it. And there are many other toppings that you can. 4 minutes, 100 degrees Celsius, speed spoon. Here we go. 4 minutes, 100 degrees Celsius, speed spoon. Okay, and I'm going to continue with this. So you would see that having 2 bowls, actually with 2 Thermomixes, I've actually got 3 at home, is very, very useful. You count it as if it's your extra stove. So even dekat dapur, on your stove, you would have like 2, 3 cooking stoves, right? And that's how I would akin it when you're having a Thermomix. However, you can just have 1 Thermomix and then you can have an additional mixing bowl, which is fantastic because for this current promotion, the purchase and host gifts include a mixing bowl, which is worth 1,535, including the blade cover peeler, which is worth 200 ringgit, at least Malaysian ringgit, because I know some of our Singaporean and Brunei friends and maybe some other Thermi users from all around the world are watching this in too. And we've also got our thermal mat, this mat. So isn't it great that this is the purchase and host gift? So if you have family and friends who are dying to get the Thermomix themselves, you should tell them about this offer because we also have a new members program which you should ask your advisor about, or you can just, you know, DM me if you would like to find out a little bit more, okay? Because that's fantastic. All right, so this is as thin as I can possibly get right now, but I'm just going to try thin as possible because then it's so much nicer when you cook it with your blade cover peeler, 100 degrees Celsius, 4 minutes. Then it comes out really, really nice. So the first time I did it, someone actually asked me, how long did you take for you to get this dish right? It took me 3 attempts before I finally got the thickness of the ravioli perfect. And again, it helped with my pasta machine. That really helped me out. So yeah, it does take a lot of patience and lots of practice. But when you eat it, and you're saying, I did this from scratch, that's such a content feeling. All right, so I'm just gonna roll it out. I'm gonna keep this aside. And this is what I mean. See the difference of thickness if I use the roller. And then maybe you can just roll it out again. And this is just a demonstration since I've got about 1 minute. And I had also pre-made my beef ragu because we've got another additional 30 minutes. But for the benefit of the show, I also want to showcase the full dish in just a bit. All right. So this is my version of the rolled out one, not using the pasta machine. So you can see that it's slightly thicker. Dollop a bit of water around it, just so that it will seal nicely. So you were here, if you were here in the studio, right, you will notice that the beef ragu that is cooking behind me, they're on, off. So what it does is it mixes it and then it stops for a while. So that's how it is, slow cooking your meats to make it nice and tender. All right, so now I'm just gonna push the filling to the middle just to create, ensure that there are no air pockets surrounding the ricotta filling. And you will see definitely, even from naked eye, that this is way, 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 way thicker. And I would definitely recommend, if you love your pasta, to get a pasta machine. So it's something that you can definitely invest in, okay? Because trust me, when you have your Thermomix, there's just so many things that you can make from scratch, including your pasta and such. All right, so this is how it looks like when I'm using a roller. All right, so now I'm going to scoop out my ravioli, and I'm going to be plating it with the, ta-da! I've already have this ready, which I cooked earlier on just before the show, and it's very runny. It smells really good. It reminds me pretty much of a beef stew. And can you use other meats? You can, but depending on what meats you're using, depending on if you need to cook it a little bit longer or shorter, that is something that you can also try out, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put this all aside, and we're gonna get this one also, because later I will cook you for everyone here. And I'm going to cover you so you don't get so dry. See what I love about the Thermomat? It really does multiple things, including just covering it so that we keep the dough side and nice and still soft so it doesn't dry out. And my next step is I'm just going to get my plating. So I had actually prepared 2 plates. Ta-da! And let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Which one should I use? Okay. Now, if I can just showcase how this looks like. If we have a particular spoon that has, it would be great if you have those spoons that has a bit of holes inside. I think they call it like slotted ones. Can't remember what the actual word is. Just so that you can ensure that your ravioli, the water doesn't come out. Let's go with this. Maybe this can go on top. Plating gitu. All right, and we're just gonna put this. Again, if you have a slotted spoon, that would be perfect. Then we are going to add in the beef ragu. Usually dalam restaurant, that looks about it, right? Actually, I add more when I'm eating at home. And then I am going to add the beef ragu. Ding, 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 I'm so excited. Pour the beef ragu on top. Yes, just like that. Yes, and then we've got some parsley, which we're gonna topple. So this one you can do slow-mo also when you're doing your reels. And on top of that, I also have a block of Parmesan cheese where I am also going to grate it. This is so great, grating it. And we are gonna grate some Parmesan cheese on top. I love extra cheese. And voila! Beef ragu with ravioli. And if you are making this dish, do remember to tag me at Grandpa the Cook and Daphne Iking. Till then, I'm gonna serve this. It's so good. Till next time, guys. Good night, everyone. Bye.